Hi, it's Laura and Michelle. I want to talk to Laura today about her journey, which has been illustrious and amazing.
And long.
Not long, yeah. And just how you got into it and what happened and how you ended up today with me.
Okay. I think, well, I did a psychology degree. Had no idea really what I wanted to do. I knew I probably didn't have the patience to be a psychologist. So I came to Australia and I'd been teaching English as a foreign language, so I'd done that in Thailand, and I enjoyed that, but I didn't want to be a teacher, and I got involved in some sales when I first arrived here, and ended up kind of putting the two together and saying, oh, okay, recruitment's maybe where to go. I remember having an interview with a recruitment company where she told me she didn't think I'd be very successful, so that was motivating. And then
Have you gone back?
Funnily enough, when I was managing an agency, she came in to supply people, so that was a funny conversation. But from there I got into a specialist perm recruitment agency, and when I joined them, maybe I just didn't know any better. We literally had no brands, so we had an office without walls. They were putting the computers in, so we had no candidates, no clients, no brands.
Scratch.
Yeah, and I remember the first time that the phone call came through of the first candidate. We were all too scared to answer the phone. So you know, that beginning, built that up, and I became a senior consultant, and I became team leader quite quickly there. Loved that side of things, and we were developing. We were in the internet space then, and that was really cool. Loved that. And then I decided, I was with them for about 4.5 years, and decided we were very candidate orientated, and I wanted to go to a company that I perceived as more client orientated. So I moved to more of a generalist agency in Sydney, and I managed major accounts there. I did some HR consulting. I actually was meant to join them as an HR consultant, and I did that for about 4 or 5 months, but I kept looking over to the recruitment team.
That's how
and they didn't have a team leader or a branch manager. So in the end, we all just went, okay, let's do that. So I moved into that role, learned a huge amount there. And then I went back to the UK for a short period and worked at an agency specialising in social workers on a contract basis, where it was one room, 50 recruiters, and we were faxing. And I was like, but there is email, but it was, you know, we were, so that was an interesting experience. And then I moved to Perth and to a perm recruitment company, and went through, that was just at the beginning of the kind of boom then with mining, so set up a mining division, engineering division, and that grew rapidly, and we had a great time then, as you remember, and so went through that whole thing of having high performing team, and then getting that team to develop their own team, and you know, I think we learned a huge amount about leadership program through that. So then, you know, they were managing and people becoming business unit managers and things like that, and then I was there for a substantial period of time, and then just got to the point where I felt like I'd done that a lot, and so decided to go out on my own, did some various things on my own, and you left about the same time, and then of course we always kept in contact and so on, and acted sort of like helping each other out with each other's businesses. And then we had that conversation where we said, you know what, let's go back together and do it together, and there we go.
Full circle. I think for me, the things that I always looked at you going, how are you doing this, is when after the mining boom in particular, we went through a very difficult phase, especially because we were operating in Perth. And it was so hard to find business in the areas that we were in. And what I really thought, for me, your superpower has always been the fact that you can, I know we can't use the word anymore, but that you pivoted us so quickly into other markets. I think that is absolutely your superpower. And we ended up working, do you remember, none of us in Perth, and we worked all over the place. I remember one of our consultants even worked regional accounting, New South Wales, you know what I'm saying? And I think that for me was something that you developed that not because of anything that was happening around you, you just had an absolute, I think, just passion for that, because you like digging for things and finding out things, and yes, had to, but I think you became really good at that. And the other thing is just identifying emerging markets. I think that I so admire that in you.
Well, I think when I started in IT recruitment, and I remember I was doing AS400.
Oh, mid-range. Oh, they were amazing.
Which wasn't really my cup of tea. So I did some research and found out there was this new thing called the internet coming along, and I was like, that sounds cool. And so I did some research and said, hey, can I go into that area? And I just loved it, and we grew that really quickly. And that was at the time where, you know, all the big 4 consulting companies were getting in on it, and it was just a really exciting time. And then we had Y2K. Yes. And so I remember literally being on the phone with an American company in that space, and they in internet providers, and they phoned me and they said, we were talking about what was happening, and then they literally said there's security guards at the door, and they came in and shut the company down. So you just had companies closing all over the place, and so we had to change then, and we moved very quickly into another market, and I think because we all had to make it work. And I remember at the time I was trying to buy a flat in Sydney, and we all know how affordable that is, and so I was really pushing, and so we moved into this new market, and I sort of learned that through that process. And then when we had it in Perth, we built up these massive teams in these spaces, and you know with your team, that's people, they've got mortgages or kids, or you've got to make sure that there's a future for them. So we looked at different markets and looked at other things that were popping up, and luckily in Perth there were some other things popping up. So we kept a few people kind of maintaining markets, but I think for other people we needed to offer them those bigger opportunities, and so we moved into markets really quickly. Very quickly.
But if I was just thinking, if we put together all the markets that we've worked in, so I always worked in IT. Before I came over, IT was a big thing, and then marketing with the executive search company, because they were executive search, particularly in the marketing space, and then with engineering, and then accounting, and mining, and all aspects of it, and property and residential construction, commercial construction, law.
I did some work in office support, call centre.
Oh yes. Unreal. There's probably a dozen markets that we've been in.
And it's so weird because you find in each market you find those
sweet spots.
The sweet spots and the interesting bits, and I'm always interested by whichever market. There's always something to learn.
You know what I find amazing is when you see new consultants going into markets, or us going into markets, how quick we learn about it, and how quick that thing becomes your thing. How quick you can master. If you think about it technically, how quick you can master that. It's amazing.
Well, I think we had a very detailed program about how to master that. 100%. And of course, there's lots of research you can do, and then it's how you put that in practice, and then it's curiosity and interest and all those things. Take it from there.
And I remember, and I'll never forget this about you. You always say to people, whoever you put into new markets, you said the purpose of us going into that market is to dominate that market and to be number one in that space. I'll never forget. That was always your thing.
That's the little competitive edge.
That is actually a little bit
that we share.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.